Hello, everyone. Sad. It's the last episode of season 2 of Asked and Answered.
Man, the tone shifts at the intros and outros. Hi, everyone. Welcome. So excited to have you here.
I know, but sad to leave.
I am. Let's make it fun.
Let's make it so fun. This is actually a pretty lighthearted topic by our standards, so...
I was going to say, we'll see. Don't worry. We'll leave you on a heavy note, as promised.
As promised. This is Asked and Answered, a financial advice show starring me, Chelsea Fagan, founder and CEO of The Financial Diet.
And me, Erin Lowry, author of 4 books about personal finance called Broke Millennial. Insert topic here.
And we are here to, if you don't understand the title, what more can we say? You ask questions, we answer them. Duh. And today our topic is buying and spending. So all things like shopping, how we spend our money, etc. And before we get into that, I am just going to take a quick moment to thank our partner with whom we make every episode of Asked and Answered, advisor.com. They are, if you didn't know, a financial advisory service, which means they have financial advisors, financial planners who help you plan out your financial life and essentially help you with every aspect of your finances. And, they really help as much or as little as you want them to and on what you want them to. Everyone is different, but they can definitely also help you with your spending and how you're budgeting, because ultimately, it is our smaller day-to-day financial decisions that make up the big financial picture, but they also help with things like investing, saving for retirement, buying a home, planning your estate, really anything that you might want to be doing financially, big or small. And they also advisor.com works on a flat fee model, which means you pay the same regardless of how much money you have or what financial decisions you're making, which makes them much more financially accessible than most financial advisors, and also means that they work for you and not commissions, which we really love and support at TFD. They're a great team. We know them very well personally. We do a lot of workshops with them. And a lot of the TFD community already works with advisor.com and loves it. So if you were ever interested in setting up a call and learning more about it or asking any questions you might have, just click the link in our description and set up a free call. No risk. But as they say, no risk, no reward. Except I guess this is the reverse because there actually is no risk. It's a free call and you're not obligated to do anything. So go to the link, fill out the form, and give them a call. Anyway, buying and spending. I think you're much more of a spendthrift than I am.
Yes.
Not me, baby. I'm here for a good time, not a long time. I'm here. I'm gonna go. Thank God I don't have kids because I'm going to that grave broke. If I see myself getting close to that horizon and I still have a bunch of money, we're spending, baby. How can I tell the difference between compulsive shopping, shopping addiction, and bad shopping habits? And does the difference really matter, or am I just deluding myself? Basically, online shopping has been my stress relief habit during this news cycle especially, and as you can probably guess, my credit card doesn't like it.
I don't know how much the difference matters if you're putting yourself in credit card debt, other than maybe the way that you would address the underlying problem would slightly change in terms of therapy. But it sounds like you just like a dopamine hit, and this is the way that you get it.
Yeah, I agree with that. I think it was Heather Hurst who said on TFD a couple years ago during our interview that part of the reason why so many bad shopping and spending habits are able to get to the place that they do is because we don't always necessarily treat compulsive shopping or spending with the seriousness that we treat things like, for example, substance abuse. We treat physical addictions in a very different way than we treat financial addictions. I think similarly with things like compulsive gambling, and debting and all of that. I think that there's just... We don't, I think, always look at it as the hard line in the sand that it should be, or we don't view it as destructive as it is, because we're not necessarily maybe physically harming our bodies, which I think is a real mistake because, as with any compulsive or addictive habit, it has the potential not only to really damage our lives in the short and medium term, but generally speaking, these things get worse with time. And, I personally, as someone who has really struggled with compulsive spending, and I still do to this day, baby, like not in a sustained way, and certainly not in a way that really puts my finances in jeopardy, but I definitely have times where, similar to you, as a result, due to acute stress, or if I ever feel insecure about something, very long ago in my mind, I formed the neural pathway of the solution to insecurity is through spending money, is through acquiring things that will allow me to be perceived in a different way. Although I would say it is largely broken at this point, there are definitely still times that I get into those modes. I think there are two questions to answer here to move toward a solution, at least in my experience. One is to really determine what your actual budget is, because you need to know how much you can actually afford to spend, because some online shopping is fine. Some online shopping can be a part of a balanced budget, a balanced financial diet, as it were. But there's clearly a limit. There is a numerical limit at which spending will put you into debt. Period. And if you don't know where that limit is, and many of us who struggle with this will intentionally keep our own finances blurry to ourselves, because we like to be able to delude ourselves into thinking that we have more margin than we do, and to not be honest with ourselves about the consequences of our choices. In this way, it is very similar to a lot of substance abuse issues, for example. Like, people lie to themselves, and they are very good at doing it. But it's very easy to do that with credit cards because you don't have to actually see the money. So knowing the actual budget is first and foremost the most important step. Even if you don't change anything yet, be very, very lucid about your actual budget and when you're going over that limit. And then the other thing is, you've already identified the issue, right? You have already identified why you are spending and what is triggering you to spend. Now, part of that might be not exposing yourself to as many triggers, at least in the immediate term. Like, I give you permission. You don't have to read the news for a while as you're trying to break this habit. You can just be like, so many of the people that I see every day on social media who I imagine just get up and watch Coco Melon because everything's fine for them. They've never been stressed. News schmooze. They're living their best lives. So if needing to be one of those people for a little while is essential to you breaking this habit, take it. But also try and identify the things that you are trying to solve for, or the feeling that spending is causing in you, because there are many ways to get that feeling that don't necessarily require spending money. As Heather, I think, also spoke about on the channel, one of the ways for her was going to museums and art galleries, window shopping without going into stores, creating mood and inspiration boards, reading physical magazines, things that give you this sense of you're seeing the beautiful things, you're imagining them, going up to the point of where you would need to purchase something, but you're learning to decouple that good feeling that you get from the actual need to hit buy. Because as we've seen in the data, actually hitting buy isn't the part that gives you the good feeling. It is the searching, it is the collecting, it is the inspiration, it is the projecting in the imagination. So those were two really big helpers to me. But again, it's still something I struggle with. I know how it goes. So Godspeed.
I'd also assess what are some of the real underlying triggers. We're all living in a pretty chaotic news cycle. I'm not diminishing that could be one of them, but I bet there's some other stuff. And being really thoughtful and introspective about what those are, as opposed to just saying things feel really chaotic right now, that's what the problem is. So I would say also really assessing what the other potential triggers are and how to avoid those, in addition to just maybe we don't consume as much news right now, or have discussions with people, because I feel like sometimes maybe you're opting out of the news, but then the people in your life are talking about it anyway. So you're going to probably get some level of information.
Agreed.
And figuring out what else could be the underlying issues. I also feel like so much of this does just come down to control. And there's two ways that people go about it. Buying can make you feel in control, but also really not spending at all is the other extreme here. And both are just versions of feeling like you personally have a sense of control.
Agreed. I feel like I woke up one day and realized that I don't like any of my clothes, nor do I know how to dress as a mid-30-something. How much should I realistically budget for a wardrobe overhaul? And what's the best way to make that money stretch? If it helps, I work an office job that I go to 2 to 3 days a week, and I live in a climate with 4 regular seasons.
I'm going to take the words out of your mouth because you said it to me recently as somebody who's also in my 30s and trying to reestablish my wardrobe. Try a rental service. Yes? Were we going to go here?
I think that for this purpose, they can be extremely helpful. And I'm saying that as someone who just canceled her rental service because I won't be around enough to use it in the coming months. But I've used some form of a rental service for clothes for the past several years. And I think it can be really, really helpful I think it's really helpful for travel and like vacation or special occasion, especially like for special occasion, like the more upscale ones. Like for example, I can't with this particular wedding, but going forward for like a wedding that is local to me, I would never buy a dress anymore. I would just rent one because there's not that many places to wear like these fancy things. But so it's useful for those things, but I also think it's very useful for if your body is changing or in flux and you don't necessarily want to commit to a size. That is huge. And I think it's also helpful for experimenting and seeing what you like. Similarly, I have not used this myself, but I know several people who have to great success is doing a little time with like a personal style consultant, especially if you're someone who is really looking to radically overhaul everything. I am personally in a bit of a wardrobe transition myself for a variety of reasons. But one thing I always do whenever I'm at that point, which I'm currently doing now, is to really eliminate everything from your wardrobe that you do not consider to be A-list, which is to say things that don't fit perfectly. And obviously, if you can, get them altered so they do, but if they never will, so things that don't fit, things that you don't feel good in, things that are always like you're wearing it whenever it's like desperate laundry day type vibes. Anything that is not a star item, you want to probably phase out and try to phase in only things that feel A-list to you. Because often we can have these big wardrobes, especially in the era of fast fashion, and still end up defaulting to only a very limited number of items, which is just very wasteful and also mentally burdensome. So I think a stylist can be helpful. As far as the budget, it totally depends. I think it should be somewhat proportional to income, especially if you're a person, as you mentioned, you go to work multiple days a week. So this is to some extent a work expense. So I would look at it as a percentage of your overall income. And I would also look at, we live in a golden era of secondhand shopping. We really do. And there are many stores that also have their own secondhand collections, like they buy and resell their own used items. Gently used. But also you have, obviously physical stores, but you also have things like The Real, you have Poshmark, you have all kinds of things. So, and if you're looking for more investment style pieces that you can wear to work, often these are the clothes that are best to buy secondhand because they're often of higher quality construction and material and are built to last. This is also true for things like coats, leather goods, and accessories. So if you're really feeling like you don't know where to start, you're starting over from zero, I do think a combination of rental services to help you experiment at first, really radically downsizing your wardrobe to just the best items, and then perhaps engaging the services of a consultant are a really good trifecta to start.
The other thing I would add, depending on your body type and how you feel about your body, seeing what looks good on people who are built like you. This is where social media is actually super helpful on this topic. So whatever style you want, there are definitely influencers out there who have your body type and a similar style that you like. So being able to find someone that is dressing in a way where you're like, oh, I like how this looks. Their body looks like my body, so I can get a close approximation to how that piece would actually look on me and finding something comparable. And a lot of people, especially if they specifically are fashion influencers or style influencers, they'll be sharing where they're getting all of these things anyway, which can be incredibly helpful, especially if your body is in flux for whatever reason.
Out of curiosity, as someone, so for context, you had a baby, and so you're you're sort of transitioning between wardrobes.
Yep.
Are you setting a budget for yourself? Or any kind of timeline?
I will. So this is actually a big pain point generally for me because of like body dysmorphia issues, et cetera, that way predate having a baby. So clothes have always been something that I would love to just have a stylist who could dress me every day from the sheer perspective of never having to waste brain space on this again because I absolutely hate thinking about it. So there's no joy for me in shopping for clothing. I absolutely abhor every part of the experience, which makes it very difficult. Right. So like we're just very different on that front. So I put off dealing with it as long as I possibly can because it's a trigger of something that's so painful for me personally. And it's interesting, like this is where I can empathize a lot with people who have very different journeys of finances than I do. Where, I was taught at a young age how to handle money. I've had like a very happy, healthy relationship with money. Folks who are so happy, healthy with how they dress, what they look like, all of that, could not relate, friends. So that for me, having to actually spend money on clothing is like, pulling teeth because I hate having to do it.
First of all, my Shayla, I'm so sad to think of you feeling that way, and a pox upon anyone who caused it. But I think that's true of a lot of people and a lot of women. And I will say, I don't know your finances like that, but I know enough to know you would be like a prime candidate to work with a stylist. They can give you like a wardrobe and just, you can have a spreadsheet. I have a friend who uses an app where it just like gives her pictures of all the different outfits and she just goes to the app.
I have once before, back in, I think like 2017, 2018. So no, it's been a minute. And I enjoyed the experience. So I do think that that's something that I would probably reboot again. But also as somebody who, had a baby, it's another thing too to be like, well, do I want to wait till I like try to get my body back before I spend money? Like, it's hard to justify accepting where your body is now and then dressing to that, as opposed to trying to get back what you had and holding out.
I will say the good thing about buying clothes knowing you could theoretically be smaller is most clothes you can take in.
That's true, especially if you buy quality.
Very true. I've been back in my era of getting things tailored. It's not as expensive as you think. I just got a pair of linen pants done, $35. The hems on these pants are crazy. How tall do they think we are?
I don't know.
And I'm a pretty tall woman. I'm almost 5'7". I'm almost 5'7". And I'm like have to get all my pants hemmed.
I'm 5'2" and 3/4, so I buy a lot of petites.
Yeah, but I'm not quite petite.
Yeah, no. It'd be cargo shorts.
You must love Banana Republic. Their petite collection goes hard. Revisit the videos of me and Lauren, who's standing are nose to nose, but when we sit, I look 4 inches taller than her because she has very long legs, and I do not. Okay. I would like to get more into secondhand shopping, but I don't know where to start. It feels like a part-time job navigating Facebook Marketplace. True that. Any good strategies?
I'd get off Facebook Marketplace personally.
No! I love Facebook Marketplace.
Well, are we secondhand shopping for clothing or for anything? Because for anything. Okay, that's true. I'm just like still thinking clothes because of our last
Girl, half my apartment is Facebook Marketplace. Shout out.
Well, buy nothing too for me. Like, you want to like really spend no money, depending on where you live. Really does impact the buy nothing game. But I have had great hauls off of buy nothings, which phenomenal. Asking for recommendations again depends on what you're purchasing. Depending on your city, there are also a lot of secondhand shops that are then online and they can deliver to you. So particularly if you're in a city where maybe you don't have a car, those can be really helpful. I just keep coming back to buy nothing. I love them so much. And then...
Okay, but you want to talk about a part-time job, looking for a wardrobe on a buy nothing?
No, not a wardrobe, like furniture pieces, definitely for baby stuff, all of that. You can also do in search of on those, so if there's something specific you're looking for. Now, if you are in the position where maybe your parents have not gone through the things in their basement in a very long time.
Oh, God.
Shop your parents' house. I did that to some success. This is assuming you like your parents' style, but also any other relative that you have, or if a relative is downsizing, moving, going through old furniture pieces, old art, ceramics, dishware, whatever, is another great way to do it too.
Now listen, as a Facebook Marketplace power user, I understand that oftentimes you're communicating with people where it's like, is this your first day on planet Earth? Like, it is the most chaotic and unreliable communication you've ever encountered. But I do think like part of getting into secondhand shopping, which I've been really trying to do a lot and have been good at doing. Now, I want to say there are many places that will make secondhand shopping seamless, but you pay the premium for it, right? Like, for example, for furniture and home goods, there's things like Apartment Deco, there's things like Cherish. There are places that make a very curated and seamless experience, but they're generally a lot more expensive. Similarly, there are, websites and apps for clothes that are a much more seamless user experience. Generally, there's a markup there as well. There are even clothing brands like LaFleur is a good example where they on their website have an entire part of their website that's just about their own resold clothes. But again, it's not going to be as affordable as if you found it on Facebook Marketplace or in a thrift store. So there is a way to sort of reduce that friction. That being said, I think part of the shift into the secondhand shopping mentality is really trying to rewire your brain away from the way we have been taught that shopping should be, which is not healthy and which is part of the reason we are in this problem to begin with, which is to say everything is overly abundant, instantly available, requires essentially no lift on your part, can be acquired whenever, wherever, and there's just sort of a limitless access. That If you go into secondhand shopping with those expectations or used to that experience, it is going to be abundantly frustrating. Obviously don't do it for any item you need tomorrow, right? Like, don't do that. But if there are items, and I would say most items in our life, we have flexibility around, even if it's a little annoying in the intermediate. Going in with that expectation of you're going to put more work in for, generally speaking, a better product, higher quality, much better price, all of that. I think it's about reframing in your mind. Like, it took me forever to find my coffee table. Picture my coffee table. It's not to your taste, I'm sure some of you, but I love my coffee table with the glass and the little brass swans. It feels so special and unique. I got it for $70 on Facebook Marketplace, and it's great quality. And it's a really nice big table. I looked for probably 3 months before I found the coffee table I wanted. Could I just have gone on the West Elm website and been like, one coffee table, please? Sure. But I like doing it that way. It's just about adapting to that mentality.
This is also an area where it's great to have items on which you want to splurge, whether that means paying full sticker price for a new piece or knowing what the new piece is, but then trying to find it or a close version of it and just taking your time. But that was one thing, as someone who had never really invested much into furniture. When we bought our home, I was like, I just want to buy like 1 or 2 pieces that are really legacy pieces for us, that are incredibly well made and that are going to be pieces that I'm going to love in years to come, because they're not like of an era necessarily. They just really can stand up to the test of time. And one of them is my dresser. I love it so much. Like, every day it brings me some happiness. I find it so beautiful. But there are many other areas in terms of our furniture that we went with either a cheaper, not in terms of like cheap quality, but found a cheaper way to get something. And yeah, I think having that balance is really important too.
Totally agree. Also, last note, but for furniture and home goods specifically, shop floor models. Most furniture stores will sell the display models that have been on the floor for huge discounts. I got my solid mahogany and ebonized wood and solid brass dining table that was originally like $3,200. I got it for less than, it was like 60% off, 65% off. And they delivered it for free because it was a floor model. So last question, what is your advice for negotiating/compromising on big ticket purchases that one partner wants and the other is indifferent to? In my specific case, my husband wants to upgrade our car, currently our biggest non-mortgage expense, into an even nicer one when our current car works just fine. He's the breadwinner and technically we could afford it, but it feels so wasteful to me. How do we decide what is fair?
I always like this question. Fair, we're going to set aside for a moment to talk about the compromise element of it. And I like it because certain things, cars, furniture, the house you live in, sometimes somebody should just get the W, because it's kind of strange to be setting up an environment or a situation in which both of you are a bit disappointed, especially when it's something like the house you live in, the bed you're sleeping on, what have you. It's important to not get really tit for tat in this situation where it's like, last time you got the W, this time I get the W. But having really reasoned conversations, a couch is a really kind of low-hanging example of, if you want a $5,000 couch and you have all these reasons for why you want this, and your partner wants to spend, $1,000 on a couch, I don't know what couch that is, meeting in the middle around $3,000 just means both of you are unhappy, which is a strange choice. It is important to sometimes, on particular items, especially ones that you are going to be using a lot, that you're not both upset about it, because then also using it all the time, you're probably going to just constantly be reminded that this isn't what I wanted, this isn't what I wanted, this isn't what I wanted, and both of you feel that way. A car, though, I don't see a ton of value in constantly having new cars unless for some reason your job is attached to having a nice new car, and so therefore it's some version of a business expense. I'm a very drive that bad boy into the ground kind of mentality, but having a reasoned conversation about, why is this important to your partner? Why do they want to have this particular car? Does it reasonably make sense financially? Is there some sort of financial benefit to having this car? How much are you going to get for selling your old one? Have a really good conversation about it. But then if you're going to shut it down and say no, where is that going to come back to bite you in the future too, is always an interesting one to think about.
I say divorce him. I'm kidding.
Use your secret bank account.
Use your 12 secret bank accounts. Now, as we know, if car culture has 0 haters, I am dead. So I'm always going to be predisposed to say no to a car. Also, a lot of Americans statistically are paying way too much for their cars. way too much, and it is really messing up their budgets as a result. So I'm always loath to encourage people to move in that direction as well. And it's also, a car is not a one-time expense. A car is an ongoing bill that has to be accounted for whether or not your financial situation changes. Someone could suddenly be out of a job and you're still on the hook for that car. And then you have to go through the whole rigmarole of changing it if you want to change that bill. And it's unlike many other recurring bills, or at least some other recurring bills, it is a fundamentally depreciating asset. You're not getting anything out of it except for driving a cool car. So from a financial POV, you have every reason to keep your car cost as minimal as you can while still being functional and comfortable. That being said, I do think that what is important to establish is, what is the amount of money monthly that each of you get to sort of spend without having to check in on the other? Without that, there's no limit to this. And I don't like, hearing the mention of he's the breadwinner, because in a shared financial home, that shouldn't matter. Ultimately, your finances are collective now. And also, like, if he's the breadwinner, you may be doing a lot more in the home. You might be raising the children more. You might be engaged in more domestic labor. So I really don't like ever getting into a situation where he or she who earns the most gets to dictate most of the purchases. I think that's really antithetical to the idea of true financial partnership. So I would have a conversation with him. I would say, I don't think we should do this for X, Y, and Z reason, but if it's very important to you, I would just like to not have it come from me saying okay to this, but rather have it come from a place of like, well, what is the amount each month that we get to be discretionary about, and does this fall within that? If not, I don't think it's necessarily very fair that we add it. But yeah.
Also, what is the difference in cost between the car that you currently have, the car that he wants to get, and where, in terms of where that money is coming from? If it's not from his discretionary fund, aka it sounds like allowance, what is that then going to make it harder for you to achieve financially? What are the other goals that you are working towards as a family? And let's say we're routing now $350, $400 a month away from that goal towards this car. How much longer is it going to take to achieve XYZ other goal? Coming from a goal perspective in any sort of couple financial disagreement can be an incredibly helpful tool, because it keeps you from getting focused on, you want this, I don't want this, and I say no, so we're not doing it. Instead, it comes from, I hear that you want this. This is how much it's going to cost, but these are what we said are our goals and what we're trying to work towards. So if it's taking this much money away from our goals, I don't see it making sense. Could you explain to me from your perspective why it makes sense? Or are you comfortable with it then taking 1, 2, 3, 4 more years to achieve this goal over here that we're trying to achieve? Putting it in context of how much this is going to impact your overall financial situation is really helpful.
Agreed. Well, that's it. Another season has come and gone on Asked and Answered. What are your summer plans, Erin?
Well, I might be visiting you.
I got another one. Yes, she's going to be coming to visit my husband and I in France, along with many of our other friends, our nearest and dearest.
Taking some trips, spending some time. As mentioned several times, my husband's a teacher, so we love summer because he's out on summer vacation and we can do a lot of family time. Our
husbands are both running the New York City Marathon this fall, so they'll be running together this summer in France. Someone will be driving in front of them with a little croissant dangling out of the back of the truck, and they'll be running
That could really get him to go. That would be a great idea.
Cool. Well, whatever you're doing this summer, have a good one. Don't spend too much. Spend what you can afford. And we'll see you back here for what I think will be another season of Asked and Answered.
I hope so. Asked and Answered.
Asked and Answered.
See you later.
Get what you get. Bye.